Good morning and welcome back to the Morning Connection. Your hosts, Minette Lawrence and Percival Palmer, have been joined by a very special guest. Welcome, Mr. Patterson.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good morning, sir.
Good
Mr.
morning.
Patterson, the farmer, and the beekeeper.
Oh, you should say Farmer Farmer Patterson.
Farmer Patterson. Yes, welcome, sir. Glad to have you in person.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Okay, so we started a conversation on Tuesday,
Yeah.
and you so kindly graciously and kindly consented to come in person. And I know there are many questions that we want to go beyond the political talk to the real thing in terms of implementation. And so we were talking about leadership this morning in terms of how important leadership is, because it is the beginning and the end of success in person's life. How do you feel about that?
Absolutely. Leadership is critical. In any given society, you need to have someone who's able to set a clear vision and who's able to bring people together, organize, and achieve the objectives that will push us forward as a nation, as a group, as an organization, whatever it is. And so I think leadership is critical. And for you to be an effective leader, because there are good leaders and bad leaders. You have leaders who can lead you to something bad and something good. I think you're interested in those that will lead us to something good.
Remember in high school, the
Yes.
guy who would get everybody getting in trouble, and he was a bad leader, but
Yes.
but it seemed like you were a good leader when you were in high school, because you were a head boy and
Yes.
all of those different things.
But in high school, I did a lot of things. I was one of those who failed the common entrance twice. And so when I went to Spanish Town Secondary, I decided I was going to change things. And so I really got involved in the society, in the school society, creating the science club, creating the drama club, organizing students, becoming president of the student council, becoming head boy, and really lifting the standard of the school. As you know, secondary schools were not top rated at all back then. So I tried to elevate my fellow students and get us to a level that would make us comparable with other high school students.
Okay. Because you went to Spanish Town Secondary and then went to Stats.
Yes.
So how?
How did that happen?
Yes.
So Stats at the time had this
Isaac
program.
Henry.
Yes, Isaac Henry. They had a program where they picked the best of the secondary schools and gave them a second chance at the technical high school. So I was among those who got a second chance to go to Stats.
Okay. Minute?
Oh, my turn.
Yes, my turn.
I don't know if you had a chance to listen to us earlier this morning.
No, I was dealing with some fires, at the office. So
Oh, the office being personal office or political office?
both.
Both.
Yes.
All right.
So early in the morning?
So early in the morning, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yes. When you take on the responsibilities of leadership, you don't get to sleep as much as you'd like.
Okay. All right. Interesting.
Well, that is there are some jurisdictions in which the health of the leader is as important as the finances of the country. Jamaica has really not been one of those. I mean, our leaders can look as unhealthy as they like, but what I'm assuming that being a modern day leader, you have a perspective on health and wholeness.
Balance. Yes. Self-care.
No,
It's funny, the
not
word
on.
we're using, yes.
I know, I'm not punning. Not on wholeness.
Wholeness.
Wholeness, yeah.
But if you have a perspective on wholeness, the
Wholeness,
Prime
yeah.
Minister, you can offer it too.
I'm more interested in the wholeness of the person.
Okay. So,
Yes,
all right.
yes. Speak to me a little bit on that, because today is to really look at the softer, intangible issues that nonetheless are part of what makes the big things great.
Absolutely. Well, I have been labeled as a health freak, if you will. I've been a vegan for a number of years, 26 or so years, to be honest. I believe in the wholeness of the person, mind, body, and personality or character or spirit, if you will. So I strongly believe in building the total person. So eating healthy, thinking healthy, and having healthy relationships are very important to me. They guide my philosophy, my thoughts, my actions. So even though I lead the UIC and I do lose some sleep, I try to find a balance as much as possible. I exercise every day normally, except for maybe on a Sunday or a Saturday I might take some day off. But I work out every day. I know I don't look muscular, but I try to stay, fit. I believe in family. So I've been married to my wife now for 28 years.
Oh.
And it's one wife.
One wife.
Married a husband and one.
Yeah.
Husband of one wife, yes.
And incidentally, we met in the 8th grade at Spanish Glory Secondary.
Wow.
So it was love at first sight, if you will. We became very close friends. She was the deputy head girl when I was the head boy. She was my secretary in the science club. She was my secretary in the student council. She was my secretary in the drama club. And she
married secretaries.
She really supported me when I did school challenge quiz, and she was there with me at all of the games and all of the competitions. So she's really a very supportive.
So
wife.
why isn't she here?
She actually had to travel today.
Oh, okay.
So I couldn't bring her here with me, but she's normally with me everywhere.
Yes,
And,
yes.
She's a model of the that woman the Bible talks about.
The virtuous woman out of Proverbs.
The virtuous
Yes.
woman. That's my wife, and I could not be anything without her. My mother laid a great foundation, and my wife built on it.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, so you two have truly become one from
When
a
are
long
we
time.
when are we voting?
Yes. So you believe in family, and that's a very important
And
part.
I truly believe in the natural family. I know there are various configurations now being put forward in terms of what a family is.
Yes.
But I really believe that we ought to pay attention to what it means to be a family and what we transmit to our children and say this is a family. Because there are consequences. And while I embrace everybody's personal choices, we have to look at how our choices affect our children.
Okay.
Because you can destroy the mind, and you can destroy the character, and you can destroy a society if you don't have a proper family and the values transmitted from that family to the next generation.
Okay.
So is there a difference for you between embracing and respecting? Because there is a difference for me. So when you say you embrace everybody's personal choice, what does that mean? And think of it in terms of respecting it and embracing it.
Sure. For me, I may use the word interchangeably.
Yes.
But what really matters is that I may not be in agreement with your choices.
Meaning you wouldn't have made the same choice.
The same choices. I wouldn't endorse your choice. I wouldn't promote your choice, but I would respect your choice.
Absolutely. And that's the kind of opening line now for us to talk a little bit about human rights.
Yes.
A big issue tied up also with the rights of indigenous peoples, because they say we're going into animal farm now. All animals are born equal, but some are more equal than others.
You probably would have read that. That was a text as a standard book for us growing up. Yes, right.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
And it's a sentiment that we see played out in the political arena all the time, where there are some who take to themselves just a higher share or quality of rights than they give to others. You were arrested whilst protesting and promoting the freedom for persons to make a personal choice concerning medical care.
Yes.
Was that a difficult thing for you?
The arrest or the choice of going out?
Well, the arrest is the consequence.
consequence of going out.
But when you're going out, you know that that's a risk.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. For me, the consequences of not doing it were greater than the consequences of doing it. I needed for Jamaicans to understand that not only does somebody care, but that they need to care about their personal rights and freedom. It is a dangerous thing when we go down the road where we believe that because somebody is elected, whether or not they're elected properly or their election represents a majority, we should not believe that any individual should have the authority to override our personal rights and freedoms under any circumstances. They may suggest, they may educate, they may inform, they may support, but they may never be allowed or must never be allowed to take away our personal rights and freedom. For me, under any pretext, even in war. And this is, you know, unusual because, you know, some people think that
Because of war.
if it's a war, then, it's
Then
okay.
everything is suspended.
Yeah, I don't agree
Yes.
with that. You never suspend the basic fundamental rights of human beings under any pretext. This is why now you need leaders. Leaders must be able to encourage, must be able to influence, must be able to motivate people to action, not use force to get their way.
So they can achieve informed consent.
Absolutely.
And the Vienna Convention and the other treaties that have come out of abuse of prisoners and abuse of individuals under circumstances of siege or stress all point to the rightness of that position. But I have to ask you this then. Did you listen to the current Minister of Health speak on the issue of vaccination for children and so on?
Yes, I've heard a number of comments from the minister.
Right, so you count it a victory?
You know, it's good if they make adjustments towards their previous position. I think it's important that we, generally speaking, that we make sure that we protect the rights of children and every single adult, and especially children, because children are very vulnerable, right? They can't make decisions on their own. So you want to make sure that their right to their parents being involved in their decision-making process is being observed and followed.
Okay.
Yes.
It's a quick follow-up in terms of the whole thing of vaccination, and because of the pandemic, people say it's okay to give up these rights because we're trying to achieve that. So you are saying to us, wow, let's stand back and really examine it, because a minister who I'm associated with came up and said, do not use our children as experiments. Do you remember that?
Yes.
So what's your feeling on that?
Well, you know, the statement of do not use our children as experiment, I would say do not use anybody as experiment unless they can give their consent.
Right.
This. So the bottom line for me is this. Under no circumstances do you take away the freedom of any human being. Freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of association, and most importantly, freedom of choice. And so any attempts to undermine those basic freedoms must be carefully responded to. And our leaders have failed to do that effectively in the last 2 years. They've actually pushed the boundaries as far as they can, and we the people have had to respond. Now, I am a little disappointed, to be honest with you. I thought more Jamaicans would have risen up.
What do you think accounts for that, though? Because I have a view of it, and what is your view of where the average Jamaican sits in their understanding of the importance of these rights, or even their knowledge of those rights?
I don't think I don't think they understand it very much. I think innately they have a feeling about it, and if you watch the chatter online, you'll see that they care about it. But I think there's a fear that has been instilled in them over the years that somehow a person becomes elected and they now have more rights and power than you.
They're more equal than you are.
So because they're elected, even if they only got 21% of the total possible electorate, they now have the right to override our views and our position. So there's a challenge there. I think also that our education system would have obviously failed our people, because the people do not understand rights in the way that they should understand it. They don't even understand governance in the way they should understand it. And because of that, they can be manipulated by politicians and brought to places where they should not.
Not only politicians, manipulated by leaders on a whole, even the church too.
Oh, absolutely. And
right.
You
So
saying that is highly respected.
No, man, but and that is the tension that a lot of us have to face, because I go back to the Genesis principle, which we got freedom of choice, decision. There may be consequences, but at least you have the freedom to choose. And even but I don't want to go off on a theological discussion, but that's true. But it's important that you have raised that in terms of for the public to understand and know. So a call on 9 speaks to civics in school. What do you think about that in terms of it being standardized? So from you are 6 years old when you enter grade 1, it is in your understanding in regards to the rights and the responsibilities. You always speaks about rights, but then we never emphasize, I think, enough about the responsibilities that you have. What's your own feeling on that?
Well, it's first of all, civics in school, it should be a must, understand it. Where I have a challenge though is who's civics? What version of civics?
What is the content?
What's the content?
Okay.
Because that's where you have the problem.
Okay.
We have, for example, social studies in school, and some will say, well, that covers content of civics, for example, some of it. But what you want is to teach good governance.
Yes.
Because you can put the theory of civics in school, and the student would then leave with an idealized view of what obtains, which isn't true. For example, many Jamaicans don't understand the amount of power vested in the Prime Minister currently. By design, the power he has over the Senate, and he tried to even expand that power by having undated resignation letters signed.
Right.
And he also has power over the House of Representatives, because every one of them are hoping for a ministerial post and have to watch themselves. So if you need to get those nuanced part of the curriculum in, so the students can start thinking, not just having facts and dates and statements and positions, but understanding relationships. How does this affect that? The cause and effect relationship. So they can see now how the governance model is working to either help or undermine their personal rights and freedom, how it's helping or undermining their economy, how it's helping or undermining the development of their country. And if a student fully understands the current political model, they will see clearly why Jamaica is such a corrupt country, and how by changing that model we can reduce corruption and make Jamaica a much better country than it is now.
In fact, you have been doing some of that teaching, haven't you?
Yes, we have.
And so I want you to explain what you've been doing, because I did ask you before, how do you see the transition from what we have now to the better model, or a more appropriate model, and this is in terms of constitutional reform and legal reform. So I want you to explain what you've been doing, and then I would like you to say how communities or associations or anyone who wants to have access to that information which coming out of your organization, how they can get you to come and do one of those sessions in their community.
Excellent.
So what have you been doing?
So the UIC has come to be known as two things. One is we're called by people the People's Party, and we're also called the Education Party.
Yes.
Because we spend our time educating. So instead of having these fiery rhetorical or rhetoric on the stage and exciting the people, we actually focus on educating the people. So we have walked them through, for example, the different spectrum of political designs. We have walked them through the history of Jamaica's politics and economics. We have tried to explain the connectivity between the different pieces. We do this in our online presentations that we do on UIC Liberty TV. We do this in our community meetings as we go across the country into different communities. And we have so far created now what is called the JUMP program, the Jamaica Upliftment Monetary Program, where we create in the communities community capital clubs. And in these clubs, we have weekly meetings where the members are taught things like financial literacy. They're taught the civics that you're talking about, and they're taught how to mobilize to get action in their community, how to be effective citizens in terms of representing their needs to their constituency leaders, whatever category they may be. And so we're working through that. In fact, we're just now launching this, and over the next several weeks you're going to see us in different communities, all 228 divisions across the country, all
talking
63.
about parish council?
Yes, parish councils
and constituencies.
So 228 municipalities, divisions, and 63 constituencies. And by the end of the day, we would have developed groupings in all of these communities, not just for political mobilization, but most importantly for the knowledge base, getting the persons empowerment for them to understand the economics of their country, how to pool resources together, how to invest in small and micro enterprises in their communities, and how to use that collective power now to influence the outcome in terms of their political organization in terms of the community development, in terms of connecting the different elements, the churches, the schools, the social clubs, and getting them actively engaged in building their community and seeing their community as an economic engine for their own personal development as well as the collective development of that community and by extension the country.
So does it sound like 1660?
It is. 'Cause
I know
we've been talking about personal responsibility, family,
Yes.
and then community. And I've been declaring that a tsunami is coming in our country that will shift. And that's what you need in order to shift what is happening.
And quite frankly, that program, which as you outline it, is a program that can run outside of elections.
Absolutely.
That is not
It's
about
every day.
electioneering.
No.
And when I look at it too, a participant in such a program will be a blessing to both PNP and JLP.
Absolutely,
If they
absolutely.
decide that they don't want to vote UIC
Yes.
and they get the learning nonetheless, they can be the catalyst for change. Are you
Absolutely.
prepared for that to be your greatest contribution to this country?
Well, my greatest...
Or you'd pack up your tent if you lose an election.
No, man, I came back here 10 years ago, 11 years now almost. So let's think about it.
So you've gone through two cycles.
In terms of packing up your tent. So I
Tell
left...
your marbles or your ball. Because tell your
I
marbles.
thought you were going to say your balls.
We're nomadic people, so it's tent.
Take up our tent. Yes, yes.
But I want to share this with you, just to put it
Yes.
in context here. So I left Jamaica when I was 23 years old.
Okay.
I came back in 2011, having done a marathon sprint in Canada. From going there and not having a job, working in a restaurant, a waiting table, mopping floors. Seriously, as an engineer, I left here as an engineer.
That's why I heard that and I was going to ask you about that. Yes, yes.
I left here as an engineer. I was assistant manager for instrumentation at Clarendon Money Musk, right?
Right.
Very good job. My wife is the one who caused me to leave because she had left after we finished high school. She went to Canada. Her mother had filed for her. And so she became a part of the Canadian society. She got used to the wonderful health care, the clean environment, the safe environment, the upward mobility. So she said, listen, man, Joseph, if you come here knowing who you are,
You will be president in a
you
day.
are going to shoot to the stratosphere. And so I said, okay. And she said, listen, just go. And then what really moved me, though, to go and live in
She
Canada-
wasn't your wife at the time.
no,
Ah.
well, the decision was made at the wife at the time. The decision was made after. So here's what happened. So we decided to get married as we agreed because I told her, we made a vow to each other. We decided that after college, we're going to get married. So
Correct.
that was our decision
Yes.
that we made. And as the universe would have it, immediately after college, about a year, we got married.
Okay.
And so the question now was, where are we going to live? So I said, we live in Jamaica. And she said, I understand, but I want you to come to Canada. And I said, why? She said, well, if you want me to have children, I have greater confidence in the healthcare system in Canada. I couldn't argue with that. You know why? I am not the one having the children.
Okay.
So I couldn't argue with that. So that's the basis on which I packed up and went to Canada. She also told me, though, that if I came to Canada, I'm going to do so well. That was also quite
that was the
attractive.
carrot. That was the carrot.
So, yes, and then when I got there now, no jobs for 6 months. I was on a miserable experience. I finally had to take it because I was either overqualified or underqualified.
underqualified.
So I took a job in a restaurant, mopping the floors, waiting the table for $6.85 an hour. That was so... and by the way, that was... After that, we ended up on welfare because she lost her job due to automation.
Okay. Yeah, right.
We talked about that.
Yes, yes.
So she lost her job due to automation, and so we had to go on welfare, the most humiliating, degrading
Qualified.
experience you could ever have. And so I was determined to fix that. And so quickly I rose through the ranks until I became VP of Finance for the school board and Director of Finance in government, operating a Canadian $2 billion budget and all of that. And then I said, honey, it's time. She said, I know. Because from day one when I came to Canada, I've been planning to return to
return.
Jamaica.
All
So
right.
we came back in 2011. I don't know how we got to this part of the conversation, but that's how I came back.
We jumped
the
to it.
point
You were
was-
talking about jump.
The point was, will I pack up my marbles and go
If you suffer a loss.
for a loss? I've already suffered many losses coming back to
And
Jamaica.
and
I'm
you're
still
here.
here.
You're still
and
here.
I'm going nowhere. I bought 36 acres of farmland and I am farming and I am working. I'm an accountant by profession, CPA. I still provide CPA services, and I'm working to build Jamaica one way or another. I wished that the two existing parties would copy all of what I'm proposing and do it in substance, because then I wouldn't have to do it. But I get the feeling that they're not going to do it based on
But
their
you see,
track record.
and why I took you there is because, some of us here have had brushes with the political arrangements of this country, and well, I for one came to the conclusion that you can be just as impactful working outside with the people, because if you change the minds of the people, then you influence the quality of the decisions they make, and then we don't have to be in politics. We can just work at the first stage, creating the good idea and watch it run its course. We got the signal for a break, so I think we need to take our break and then we return. Our guest is Mr. Joseph Patterson, visiting with us for the second time this week. Highly unusual, even for us, but we're pleased to have him and to know that the conversation we began on Tuesday has ignited a lot of interest, and we're trying to bring it a little closer to fulfillment today. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Morning Connection, and again to our listeners who are on air and online, I say a hearty good morning. Jasmine Powell is ready to vote for the UIC, by the way. Good morning to you. I'll just let Mr. Patterson know. Jasmine Powell says Mr. Patterson clearly knows and has experienced aspects of the problems and setbacks that a lot of people are now facing. He is the man with the solutions that Jamaica needs, and she's ready to vote. She said vote the UIC. And we've got some words of love and encouragement for you out of the UK as well. I'm trying to find it. It's way back in the chat. I saw it early. Good morning to Delroy Henry, who's giving a UK shout out to you and echoing some of the things. Earl Brown is saying good morning to you also, and Conrad in Toronto. Let's see. I gotta catch up with Truth to Power, but just letting you know that people are listening and are interested. I asked you before the break whether this initiative that you've launched, Jump,
I like it.
You like it?
whether it will continue beyond just electioneering. And of course, I said to you also during the break that many Jamaicans are so accustomed to benefits being tied up with vote and politics that even a good plan might founder because persons are mistrustful of the intent. How are you ensuring that persons understand that the door is open for them to participate in this community-based initiative, and that it does not really matter to you whether they end up voting UIC or they just take the Enlightenment to their party of choice? How do you...
We, to be very honest, we would obviously like for persons to vote UIC.
Naturally,
However,
yes.
We're more interested in nation building. We're interested in empowering the individual, empowering the family, empowering the community. So the Jump program is really meant for Jamaica, regardless of how you may choose to vote. We want the Jump program to help to liberate our communities and our families at the grassroots level. It's a grassroots movement, a grassroots program. If I were to measure the success of the Jump program, it would be that we would have opened the minds and understanding of the Jamaican people, so much so that they love, desire, and work towards good governance and will accept nothing less. And that they will also see the benefit of collective economics, meaning working in a way where you trade value for value with each other and building an economy where we see the need to not only be consumers, but to be producers.
Now, in fact, you are fresh from an internal skirmish yourself.
Yes.
You have survived a challenge in your own party, which I dare say brings truth to what you're saying. If you teach your people to think well and to apply the right principles, they will make the right choice.
Absolutely.
Tell me a little bit about that, because
Sure.
it seems that is a testimony to what it is you're
One
doing.
of the things I did not do when I created the UIC, I did not put any clause in our constitution, even though I was pushed to do so, to protect my position. I am just as vulnerable as any other office seeker within
Appointed,
the UIC.
yeah.
So you're not party leader for life.
No.
Not the Gang of Five business.
Absolutely not. And I'm not the one, Dan, or anything like that. So the people in the party are encouraged and empowered to vote for their preference. Now, there are some who may have wanted to take over the leadership, but they weren't brave enough to face me up front and to say, I am going to put my name on the ballot and we're going to be able now to argue our position in a democratic, open and transparent way. So they chose to do it more indirect and then created a number of challenges. But in the end, the members, which is the most important, in the UIC, the members are the highest body in the organization.
So do you have like what, annual,
Those
it was
who
an annual
delegates-
general meeting
we have what is called an AMC, Annual Members Congress,
Right.
where all the members come together and it's one man, one vote, no matter who you are. So there's no delegate system. You can't buy off anybody. You can't do anything because it's always open to the members, even in the diaspora. So if you're in England or Canada or
and
US,
you're a
you
member
can-
of
and
the
a member,
UIC, you can vote.
So whenever my presidency comes up or any other office comes up for the election, you have no idea how it's going to go because you can't control any delegates. You're open to the people, all the people. And that's how we want to build Jamaica as well. We want to get rid of the opportunities for corruptions even in the electoral process.
Electioneering.
Yes. Yes, so we're very open. So the JUMP program, back to the JUMP program, if we're successful,
So did you survive by a wide majority or a slim majority?
I got 100% of the votes.
Even amongst the challengers?
What happened is the challengers did not show up.
I see.
When they don't know, sure.
Do you suspect sabotage?
They tried, but they did not show up. And I understand why. You see, truth is a powerful thing if it can be effectively communicated. And I don't know how
Truth sets free.
it sets you free.
Yeah.
Now, I am not the best of communicators, but I felt that on that particular occasion, because the attempt was so fraudulent, the truth was powerfully stated and the members responded in kind. And I was elected 100% of the votes, and all those who I supported in candidacy, which by the way I do things in the UIC, I focus on competences, not on personalities or personal friends. So if you're a competent performer in the party, the movement, I am going to clearly state that so that everybody knows where I sit on each of the different offices, so they can vote with a clear understanding of what my views are on the performance of the individuals. And I ask them to do the same of me, to publicly state what they view my performance in the different areas, from leading to organizing to directing and all of that. And I have no doubt that the members will always choose the best person for the job if we clearly communicate what the issues are and how we're dealing with them.
And this happens every year?
Every 2 years we have elections for my position and the other core NEC members, but every year we have an AMC where we
Okay.
vote on issues. And
Right.
Sorry, AMC.
AMC.
The NEC is the National Executive Council.
Nobody owns that name.
Yeah, nobody owns that.
Nobody owns
Yes,
that name.
so-
But let me throw a question to
Sure,
you, even
yes.
as you've gone through that.
Yes.
I believe in seasons.
Okay.
So your
Nature gives us seasons.
Yes, nature gives us season, but even in terms of leadership,
Okay.
are you party leader for life?
No, I'm not. No.
Are you don't? Because some people hold to that.
Do you mean,
belief?
what you're asking is, are there terms? Do you become ineligible
we
after
don't
a
have
cycle?
term limits in the UIC. What we have is members limits. The members decide your term. So we don't I say, okay, you only serve for 2 years. I've been the president, I'm the founder, and I've been the president ever since. I've been re-elected now 4 times. And
4
it's
to 8.
Yeah, and it's the members who choose to do that. The moment they see it fit to place somebody else in the presidency, that's when it changes. And if I cannot perform at the level that meets their expectations, then it will change.
That's a bit idealistic.
Well, it's been happening. It's happened 4 times already. Let's see if it holds for a 5th.
For a fifth term.
Absolutely, yes. Take Lee Kuan Yew, for example, in Singapore. I mean, I know people suggest that Singapore is a bit of they think it's a form of a dictatorship. But he has been elected 30 years straight. Why was he elected, though? because he made Singapore a powerful country, taking it from nothing, fragmented, poor, ragged.
Yeah, but I think as even as we talk about innovation and freedom and individual choices and so on, there is the fact that people will continue to do. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. People will continue in the same vein unless they are stirred out of their comfort zone. And there may be someone who could have transformed Singapore to the nth degree if Lee Kuan Yew just made himself unavailable.
Sorry?
Did he use strong arm tactics?
No, he didn't.
Yeah.
No, from my assessment of Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore, he didn't. But your point is taken that sometime you need to have, maybe in your case you're thinking it's a check on how long you can serve. But the
Fresh
flip side-
blood, let your family get you back
the flip
before
side
you
is
die.
also true. Sometimes
Yes,
it
but-
can disrupt a very good thing.
Yes, that is
Now,
what makes
in the case
the
of
human
Singapore-
existence interesting.
Yeah, well, I am more interested in good governance than interesting. So, Lee Kuan Yew gave Singapore good governance, and Singapore is now the envy of the world. And I'm sure all of us in Jamaica here would have preferred if we had, let's say, for example, we had a leader like Lee Kuan Yew, who was able to marshal all the forces in the country to give us a nation which is safe, clean, and orderly, and where everybody can earn, live, and retire with dignity. We would all prefer that over simply having a term limit. Now, mark here, I'm not against term limit. The current Prime Minister said that if elected, he would give us that within the first 100 days. It's now been quite many more days than the first 100 days in 2016. So if you make a promise, you should keep it. I am not promising anybody term limits. What I'm promising Jamaicans is good governance. And I'm prepared personally to work as long and as hard, as committed as Lee Kuan Yew was for Singapore. I am prepared to be for Jamaica, so that we can have the kind of Jamaica we want. Not the optics of good governance, but the reality of good governance.
Well, I'm glad that you raised that point, the optics versus reality.
Yes.
Expand a little bit on that for me.
Sure. For example, Jamaica is known, and it is stated that we have this great democracy. And we say this with pride. But if you look at the reality of Jamaica's democracy, Jamaica in its early infancy, working with the colonial masters and working with the elites, got rid of the first political party we had, which was Marcus
Garvey.
If we had a true democracy, we might have had the Marcus Garvey party today. But because it wasn't really true, in 1944 we claimed we got the right to vote, one man, one vote. But did we really get the right to vote, or did we simply have a situation where the powers that be gave us what appeared to be options while they controlled the options we would have? And so from then until now, we have had two options, which has been underwritten by a segment of our society, the elites of our society. I call them the PSOJ oligarch. So they gave this option a veneer of democracy, but not true democracy, because the Jamaican people have not had a chance to vote for a third party simply because the powers that be have controlled the environment such that they can't really survive. Now the UIC is trying to buck that trend. We're fighting very hard to overcome the obstacles, and we're breaking through. But the more we break through is the more they try to close the door, which is understandable given what we have. But what I'm saying is, we don't have a true democracy because, for example, how educated are our people? In a true democracy, people are highly educated. In Canada, just one point, in Canada, for example, they have about 5 political parties or so. And every election cycle, there's a chance of an upset. We had a big upset once when the NDP, a fringe party at the time, became opposition. Why? Because the population is so educated that they can really reason and think through. You can't buy votes in Canada. You understand? Because the population is so developed that it's hard for you to just buy their votes. You can't trick them either with easy statements and whatever, because they can think at that level. In Jamaica, what we have done is to dumb down the population. We have impoverished the populations, and then we've been able to control them so that a small segment does go out to vote, but they're tribalistic, they're easily bought, and they get to manipulate the situation into getting what they want. The UIC says no, let's have real democracy with an educated population, with an economy that is grassroots, bottom up rather than top down, and give people the power that they need to be able to participate in choosing who and what they're governed by.
I want to introduce a sort of a fresh perspective on the issue of democracy, because you are offering a system of democracy as the decision-making methodology behind your government.
Yes.
So we can't bash democracy because it works depending on who is using it. I've raised that point because some have called us a failed democracy, some have said it's not a true democracy, and many conversations take place on the issue of democracy as though democracy is the fourth person at the table.
Yes.
When really it is a system that we choose to use, and we stand behind it, Percy and I, from a scriptural perspective, stand behind democracy as what works in the government of men. Our true government is a theocracy. So, yes, that is our true government. But while we are here, we believe in educating people and getting consent and so on. So we don't bash democracy in and of itself. We look at who's using it and why. For your consideration, democracy as it operates in Jamaica is delivering sterling, remarkable results to the people who are using it.
Not in my opinion, no.
We are not the people using it.
Yes.
The voters are not the people using it.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. No, okay.
That is why I've introduced
to
it.
the people using it.
The people who are using it are benefiting, and that is why.
No, I get you.
That is why they say we are a true democracy.
Absolutely,
because
absolutely.
they are using it to
Yes.
full effect.
Yeah, it's working for them.
Yes.
Yes, it's working
Yeah.
for them. It is working in a powerful way.
Absolutely.
For them.
You now are introducing a different way to utilize it.
Yes, yes.
And that's what I'm interested in.
Sure.
Because you are educating.
Yes.
And I like Jump.
Yes.
Now I need to have an understanding now of how you are selecting your main actors.
Okay.
Meaning they have the cabinet and the ministers, and you have a way now of selecting your main actors so that the way you use democracy will produce a more beneficial result to the voters.
Right.
How are you addressing that?
Sure. Well, the first thing we need to understand is whether or not we are a democracy, whether we want a democracy or we want something else. The UIC wants us to look at Jamaica from the perspective of a republic. We want to define republic for you. A republic is a state which respects the sovereignty of the individual. And once you respect the sovereignty of the individual, you build the rest of your framework around that. So you want to design it so that the government protects the life, liberty, and property rights of every citizen equally, and the Constitution protects the people from the government. That's number one. Then now you go into the mechanics of it. The mechanics now must be such that you have proper checks and balances. In our system, you will have an elected Senate, which is separate from the House of Representatives, which is also elected. To be elected in the House, you must live where you're running. So you cannot come from outside or be parachuted in. The Senate now is on a parish level. So every senator is representing a parish. So 14 instead of 21. In the current system, senators are appointed by the heads of the parties that lead the government. Political appointments, which makes them weak and ineffective.
And vulnerable.
In the UIC system, it's the people who elect the senators. So now you have two houses which are fully elected, but they have different perspectives. One is at the community level and one is at the parish level, and they're elected separately. Now your executive leadership, your president is elected directly by the people nationally. So he or she must have a national perspective and pay attention to the overall development of the country, balancing all the different forces. Your vice presidents now, one for each county, so they have a regional perspective, which embraces a number of parishes, right? Jamaica has Cornwall, Middlesex, and Surrey. So 3 VPs. Very important to have 3 VPs because you might have a VP wanting to get rid of the president knowing that they will step in line. But having 3 creates a bit of a balance because neither of them will know who will be selected if the president is no longer able to serve. Within this cluster of the new executive, the president and the 3 vice presidents, together with the president's running mates, a general secretary who is going to be chief of staff, and the treasury secretary who's going to be finance minister, which is his core. So 3 of them forms the core, together with the 3 VPs. They now nominate subject matter experts to reside in all the other ministries. This is important, subject matter experts, Jamaicans from anywhere in the world who have the skills we need. But you don't get to just appoint them, you nominate. The Senate then publicly vets them to see if they really can fit the bill, and the House of Representatives votes to put them in or out. This creates a kind of checks and balances like never before seen in any country based on what we're doing. The big clincher though is how you finance the campaign process. Ours will be a 100% publicly funded finance structure where you finance the candidate by giving all candidates the same platform. Not the money, the same platform, so that their constituents can hear them, whether them rich or whether them poor. So the rich man now have no advantage and the poor man is not disadvantaged. What matters is the content that they bring forward and the content of their character. So now you have taken big money out of the equation and you have put now the politics back in the hands of the people. You have set up the proper checks and balances, and you have now created a true republic with a constitution which protects their rights under all circumstances, regardless of the leader that you put in charge.
All right, I think you deserve a break after that one. And it's also time for the station break. So we're going to shift gears a bit because we now have
my beautiful friend from a very long time.
She's not hearing you.
She's not hearing me at all.
She's not even looking at you.
Hello?
Well, we're going to welcome Winsome Callum to the table in a short while when we return from the break. And this is big business because how we treat with energy, the cost of it, the management of it, and our knowledge with Mr. Patterson has been speaking a lot about the need for consumers, for voters, for citizens to be better educated on all aspects of their affairs so we can make the right choices. And thankfully we have Winsome who's going to join us after the break. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. This is the Morning Connection. Welcome back to the Morning Connection. We are getting into the last hour of the morning, and we were just so enlightened by the contribution from Miss Callum, who I tell you, I don't think there's anything about JPS, anything important about JPS that she doesn't have some knowledge and information on. So, I mean, right away, I'm thinking, I can switch to being a prepaid customer, set my limit, and then let the family fall in line with the consumption. That's great power to have. So this is now we're going to continue in the vein where we left Mr. Patterson. He had outlined the Republic on paper, but all of the good plans that we lay on paper can come to naught once man starts to move pieces around, or you know how it is. You have your beautiful design, and when it goes live on the street, it takes on a whole different shape and color. And for us as citizens, the great fear is out of control corruption or abuse of power and so on and so forth. We've just gone through on the Morning Connection. We did a review of the legislative framework and the main piece for whistleblowing, which is of course the protected disclosure of information. We also looked at the Integrity Commission. There are some anti-corruption agencies already in the field. What would you keep? What would you throw out? How would you seek to contain abuse of power in your republic?
Absolutely. I think we have made the situation more complex than we needed to be. So we have created all of these commissions and so on. If you think about it, what are the real issues in life? It's about anybody using force or fraud to get their way. That's the two things. You either use force, which is a form of theft or violence, or fraud to get your way. Why don't we make sure that is encoded in law right across the board? Teach our children. Hold our police officers or nurses or teachers or politicians, our citizens accountable. You are not allowed to engage in force or fraud to have your way. So no special treatment, whether you're a politician or you are a street vendor. If you use force or fraud to try to achieve your objective, you're offside and you're criminalized as a result of that, and you're charged. or we can set up more and more commissions, hire more people, create more offices, use more AC, produce more paper, and at the end of the day, we're still where we started.
So I do understand the principle and the theory of it, but you would no doubt have had to look at what does the public sector look like in terms of the 70 agencies under one ministry and so on and so forth. Are you paying attention to what I would keep, what I would not go? And you don't have to name specifics, but if you can give me the broad outline, I would.
But just before we go along that, based on what you have said, if the republic becomes a reality in terms of he becomes the next prime minister, would the people lose their work?
That is if he's doing what I'm saying.
Yes, you don't think about that?
I wouldn't look at it that way.
Okay.
Here's how we should look at it. If you're running a company, right, what you want is a company that is well governed. It has good governance. It employs people properly. It terminates people properly. It trains people properly. It gives people opportunity to upgrade and to move into different areas and so on. The same applies to a country. You have good laws, good regulations, good structures, and then you hire people who fit into that and people who don't. It's a good idea for many more of us to be in the private sector producing than for us to simply be in a public space occupying.
Okay, but
right?
So
let's
but based on what you have said, if we were to go, if we go to the republic, it's going to be a smaller government. It's going to be smaller. So it's going to cost us less and gets us more, because the rules are going to be clear. We're not going to have so many tiers for you to go through and so many loopholes for you to go around and so many public bodies for us to administer, because the rules are going to be very clear. It's going to be very narrow and very focused. What you have is, when you have too many gatekeepers, you're inhibiting the economy from working well, and you're giving some people an advantage over others because of either their gatekeeper position or their connection to the gatekeeper. So we have to reduce the number of gatekeeping roles. Reduce the number of gatekeeping roles, reduce the number of gatekeepers, make the rules very clear and make them applicable, and make them applicable to everybody equally. So for example, when I become Prime Minister, I don't like the word, by the way, I'm looking forward to us having a president. When I become president, I am not going to have any special treatments under the law. For example, there will be no immunity in or outside of the Congress or Parliament, as they call it. No. I will not have any powers to prevent a person from being appointed or being removed because of my personal preference. It will be designed so that the checks and balances allow the necessary parties to intervene and get the job done appropriately. And I'm being very generic here in my comment.
Yes, because I dare say, having gone through what you did, you would not discount the benefit of having structures that prevent manipulation and that would insulate power. A veto vote on some things might become a necessity. So I'm not going to hold you strictly to that. Yes, please. Yes.
I do not believe a president should have a veto vote.
But are you the people that elect Marshall?
No, but go ahead and justify.
So what you want to have is, the president's job is to bring forward, in consultation with the executive, a policy, a framework, a program, a budget, whatever you will. And he or she, together with the administration, must be able to influence the Congress or the Parliament or the House to vote on it. If all he has is a big stick to say, I am going to veto something, then you have undermined the integrity of the process. Let him or her carry out his role and function because of his or her ability to communicate, to convince and win support, as opposed to having any big stick measures to implement. I do not support veto powers.
And then you have a return of et tu, Brute. Where I'm going into Julius Caesar, who was quite the statesman and the politician, and would have convinced the people of anything, and therefore his friend had to stab him in the back. Not prophesying, just saying that Yes, because when all else fails,
Stab the man in the back.
you stab the man in his back, and we have seen many
It's so
instances
important to
of
have
it.
the checks and
But
balances, eh?
but I do understand that you're speaking of the ideal, and that in the run of
But
things,
what is life if we don't pursue the ideal?
uh,
You know, it's the
a fairy
ideal.
tale.
Hold on. It's the ideal that brings us the science that we have. It's somebody who says, "I wish I could call somebody sitting right here in Kingston. I should be able to call somebody in New York and see them face to face." It's an ideal, you know, to which
True,
we've
but
worked and achieved.
typically that idealistic individual is not the
Science.
president or the prime minister.
No,
but
he's,
that's
he's, he's in a room.
People and
Hold on.
interaction.
Usually that idealistic individual is in a room somewhere churning out ideas,
Yes, yeah.
and a lot more venal,
With
more venal
Here's how
and
we see.
corruptible
I like
persons
for us to build.
are financing it.
Let's build. We have gone through serfdom, slavery, forms of dictatorships and monarchy, to the point of parliamentary democracy, a fake republic in the US and in other areas, and now let us, Jamaica, lead the way with a real republic. Yes, there will be idealism involved, and we have
That's
to have,
important.
we have to have
Yes,
ideals
yes, we're not
to be
discounting it.
right. So let's
Percy and I are
work
quite
for it.
idealistic ourselves,
Absolutely.
and get
When we
laughed
get to a theocracy,
and get laughed
we will
at.
have an ideal
So we're
form.
going back to
Yes, yeah. Well, that is the end of things.
That's the end of
It's where it began, and we're gonna go full circle.
So I
we're
will leave you
moving.
with that, and I'll focus on here.
Yeah, we're moving relentlessly.
Yes,
Yes.
Even here, yeah.
All right, so I think I understand in theory what you're saying, and it's not disagreeable. It's just that sometimes you gotta put it to work before you can fix the
You'll test
weaknesses
it,
that
you'll
emerge. So
test it, yes.
yeah,
Yes,
so
yes.
yeah, so I'm okay with that. On the subject of human rights, and it touches on law and order too. There's a tiny report in today's paper about a new clash with the soldier in Denham Town. Head of the police association has complained about the militarization of the police force, and there were these awful videos making the round of the Jamaica Defense Force serviceman kicking the woman, using the gun, and so on. It has turned out that the community is now, and I'm not going to say I predicted it, it is just fairly, it had to happen. If you behave towards the people in such a manner, they're going to turn on you. So the community apparently turned on a soldier who was attempting to conduct a search of a resident at a checkpoint, and he was attacked with a sharp object. Let's assume you are in charge of the government in another 3 or 4 months when things collapse and people say, let's rustle together an election, and the UIC wins. What will you be doing? One, with the Jamaica Defense Force. Two, with the zones of special operations and the things that are already in train.
Right. Well, first and foremost, the UIC understands the problem. The problem of crime is a top-down one, and we've been focusing on it the wrong way. We've been going bottom-up, where we've been harassing the poor, people at the bottom who are struggling, trying to find a way to survive. We're going to focus on finding those who are responsible for bringing the guns into the country, which is not the man on the street. Those who are hindering the police from doing their work, which is not the man on the street. Those who are making decisions that have caused our economy to collapse, which is not the man on the street.
So you're going to
The
clean the
top-down.
swamp.
Yes.
You're gonna
Now,
drain the swamp?
Drain the swamp.
Drain the swamp.
If you will. Now, watch me carefully on this. The army is not to be a policing unit. It is trained differently. They have a very different psychology. They're not a mindset. They're not trained to deal with civilians in the way police is supposed to be trained to deal with them.
So would you keep them,
what I'm going to
repurpose
do-
them?
I'm not repurpose. I'm going to put the army where it belongs, protecting our borders. So no guns, for example, should be coming in, because the army would have been patrolling our borders, would have also been managing our customs in the way that an
Intelligence.
army can, intelligence, and monitor. So nothing can come in, no penetration. So that's the army. The police now, we have to retrain them so that they know that a part of their job is not just to serve and protect, but also to respect. So if you have the police respecting the citizens, working with the citizens at the community level, living in the community which they serve, knowing the mothers, knowing the fathers, knowing the child, being a part of their everyday movement, so that the people can trust them and report to them when they see things developing. Now, if you're not paying your police properly, then you have compromised them. Because when you have a police officer having 2 or 3 side jobs, him can't truly focus on his work, especially when those side jobs encourage him to compromise law and order. So we have to change the way we treat police by training them better, but also compensating them to be able to work properly in the community. And we must use community policing. It must be that the police is an integral part of the day-to-day life. They must be at the football match, they must be at the community clinic, they must be a part of the school system, the principal must know them, the students must know them, they must be able to help a child before he goes the wrong way. But the child must have respect for the police. And how does he have respect? If the police is treated with respect by the government, in his salary, in his training, in who can get access to become a police officer, because we have too many persons who are becoming police officers who have no business being so, because they don't have the right temperament, they don't have the right academic abilities and so on to be able to learn and understand. So let's make our police attractive, so we have quality people in the police force. Let's make them community based, so they're a part of the community, and let's compensate them well so they can be respected by the society.
So remember now, you've been elected
Yes.
Prime Minister, even if you change it to President.
Yes.
And so time is ticking. You've
Yes.
been sworn in and Jamaica is looking at you. Would you dismantle the,
No zones of special
the zones of
operations.
special
Yes, that's
operations?
right. No soldiers on the road in normal policing work. They'll be patrolling the
Right.
borders.
And the men who have been taken into custody under these things, are you going to do something for them?
We have a policy, you see, we call it a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, together with an amnesty program, because we believe many of our young men have been misguided even by political forces into where they are. We want to give them a second chance, give them an opportunity to be rehabilitated. So I want to offer them, come forward, share with us intelligence and information, and we can promise you a better way out, reform program, and back into society, trained and engaging. We want to make sure that we get the intelligence we need to go after the kingfish, the big people who are behind us, who you're not seeing. They're not wearing the pants dropping down, and they're not walking around. They are in offices. They are masterminding what we're seeing, and we're left with the poor little boys and girls who have been misguided, miseducated, mistreated, and now they're going to suffer. Let's change the equation and see them as a victim, and try to help them to get out of the victim status and go after those who are creating the victims and stop the bleeding that we're having right now.
I wanted to. So, you have become President, Prime Minister in regards to it. So, I asked you yesterday on Tuesday in terms of what would you do. I believe personally that a lot of the things that government is involved in, they shouldn't be involved in. So, what do you think would be the priorities of the Republic in terms of having what you call an enabling environment?
Well, very good point. The key thing in a republic is how it empowers the citizens by virtue of education and by virtue of the economic model. So we want to have a bottom-up economic model where we are stimulating growth at the bottom, making sure that the man at the bottom can easily access a bank account, easily access credit, easily access information from government about the economy that he can use to make intelligent decisions. You want to ensure that you have, especially in Jamaica's case now, we have to re-educate our people. So we must have adult education free of charge that is accessible for adults to quickly learn the things they need to learn to get engaged in the society. We need to have digital libraries that makes it easy for you to go on your phone as an adult and learn anything. In the Jamaican context, not to always the US or Canada or Britain or whatever it is, but you go on your phone, you want to know about A, B or C. You don't have to call and wait forever on the phone to find somebody who gives you different information when you call back each time, but it's there. Quick access to intelligence for you to make a split-second economic decision that's going to affect you and your family. So these are the kind of things that we want to do at the grassroots level. Our healthcare system, change the model from being one where we're prescribing the regular pharmaceuticals to one where we are looking at how can you use natural remedies that's indigenous to Jamaica. How can you live healthy to reduce your cost of healthcare and reduce the national cost of healthcare. Okay. These kind of things.
All right, so what I'm hearing you, what government must do is education,
yes,
health,
yes, security.
Oh, okay, so those are the three priorities. So we can let go everything else and become a lean small government.
Yeah, being lean doesn't mean you let go everything, you know. There are better ways to do things.
Okay, so your priorities, because you see, as Minute would say, the way my brain works is, how does this work out on the ground? We have these wonderful ideals and vision, but you're saying if you were elected as the president of the republic or the prime minister, you have to go in as prime minister first,
and then we change the
then you do
system.
the changes.
Right, so
So the priorities would be education, security, health.
Before that system change,
Okay, so
we
you
have to
fix
change
the constitution.
Yes, we must replace the constitution very, very quickly, because that is a serious problem. If you don't have proper checks and balances, no matter what programs you try to do, it will be undermined by the corruption which is endemic in a bad system.
So what you're saying in terms of our constitution that says economically, as we wrap this up, the external creditor is paid first.
The external creditor is paid.
Yeah, in terms of the first call on the budget.
In the current system you're talking about?
Yes, the current system. Is that you pay
your creditor first.
Right. And you're saying
and you borrow more from him at the same time.
He refinances you.
So you're refinancing. But our system is a little more nuanced than that. But let me say this. You cannot continue to build an economy based on borrowing and empowering just a few to control the mass of the economy.
Okay.
You need to create an economy where even if you borrow, you're stimulating growth from the bottom up. So you want the average man in a community like Braze River or Silo or Balaclava, you want the average man here in Central, gutters and pepper. You want to get down there. You want the farmer who has his 1 or 2 or 3 acres. You want him to be the engine of growth at that level. You want the lady who would have made the drops, for her to be back in the economy, making her drops and having an easy way to get that into the supermarket. You want the fellow who is growing ganja right now. You want to legalize that so that he's able to operate legally within the proper framework and not have regulation that stifles him while giving access to those with money and power and for him to just work for them. So you want to open up the entrepreneurship market so every Jamaican, no matter where they are in the economic ladder, they can quickly and easily get into the economy. When I went to Canada quickly, I found how beautifully easy it was. Things that took days and weeks and months here took hours and minutes there for me to get any form of permit, get any form of registration done, and I don't have to go stand up in long lines and wait forever for things.
And wait on the minister to sign something, or for the board to have a meeting and the meeting is cancelled.
I go online and I say, okay, I want to do this, and I say, what do you want to do? I'm going to go bam, 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 send. Okay. I wake up in the morning, email is back, you're authorized, go right ahead. I don't have to wait for the politician, wait for the minister. And that allows for quicker growth. Somebody said on your program, they wrote on the
chat.
They said, let Mr. Patterson tell us, could he and his wife achieve what they did in Canada, in Jamaica, if they had stayed here? And the answer is yes, but probably not. It would have been harder, more painful, more difficult to achieve in Jamaica what we achieved in Canada, and that's what we want to change. We must make it easier for the Jamaican to succeed here. The average Jamaican.
I have
to be a money person to get everything done.
I have 3 minutes left in this segment, and I must ask you this, so forgive me. You talked about people having access to bank account. When you touch on banking, you are touching on the interconnected world of finance and federal systems and SWIFT codes and IBAN and all the things, which tells us that finance is handled on a global platform, not on a domestic platform. I gotta ask you this. Are you looking to create what I'm now calling a people's bank, where there is domestic control and sovereignty over how people trade at the basic level within the borders before it crosses into a federal system?
We two things, and to your point. Point number one, yes, we're going to create a truly robust internal banking system that allows us to freely trade with each other. But most importantly, globally, it's not true that we can't do better globally. Jamaica has put itself at a disadvantage in terms of the way it interconnects with the world from a banking perspective. Why is it that the easy things I can do in Canada, I can't do them here? It's because of our leadership, our management, our government. If you have good government, you can have a better banking system, even with the global connectivity. You can also bypass some of the global restrictions by going to alternative, banking arrangements, using different kinds of currencies and so on. So we're going to a model that we call free banking. Free banking is going to allow the Jamaican people to have access like they have never had before. It's going to be easier and cheaper for them to do all kind of banking transactions on a daily basis. It will be a right to have a bank account, not a privilege. The bank must give you an account. Like how they stop in the UIC now from
the reason I asked about the People's Bank is because a National Commercial Bank, a Scotia Bank, do not answer to government, and you can't.
The Bank of Jamaica.
And true. So we do need a People's Bank, and that's the area. But it sounds like I've opened something that is too big for the minute that we have. But just. I understand clearly, and so should you, that there are some very easy things we can do to make banking and financial transactions within the country easier. So you're not stopped because you have $500,000 where you do with so much cash. And the things that are happening now. Please stay with us. In the next segment, we have the bee lady with us, and she's shaped like a bee too, but you would have to see her to understand. She's a queen. And she is our very own new marketing guru for the Best family. Karen Clark is sitting with us, and it turns out she's a bee lover, a honey lady. And would you believe it, Mr. Patterson is himself a bee farmer. So when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about, on the practical side now, how this transformation of agriculture can create and enhance the entrepreneurial and the niche markets that Jamaica can lay claim to. Please stay with us. This is the Morning Connection, coming to you live from the Ligony Club. We're in the final segment. We'll be right back. Welcome, Miss Karen. I know you're not shy. So would you please hold the mic good and give me a robust good morning?
Good morning, Miss Karen.
Good morning, everyone.
All right. We welcome you to the Morning Connection Free Flowing Thursday, where we just kind of let the Spirit lead us. And on this particular morning, with Mr. Patterson in the house, he's seated beside a constituent. And this is a bee farmer who is interested in knowing how this new government, led by the UIC, is going to bring wealth and transformation to the agricultural sector, to those who are seeking to both produce for local consumption and for export, because honey business is big business.
It's big business.
Success.
It's
sweet success.
Yeah. All right, I think we're getting her back into this
sweet success.
So I'm going to start with you, Mr. Patterson,
Sure.
because you had outlined how you see organic farming and the role that agriculture can play. What can you say to our bee farmer? She needs access to money, she needs access to land, she needs access to market.
All of which can easily be provided by a government that is well led and well managed.
Yes, we'll start. You are the government.
Yes. If we have a government, for one, all the crown lands that we have will be divested and available for our beekeepers to have their apiaries all over the island. We'll make sure that government doesn't do things that hinder the bee farmer, like, for example, fogging without first consulting with the bee farmer and organizing to protect their assets from big damage. We also would make sure that there's proper water availability, because bees, believe it or not, they need water. And so you have to have proper water systems available for them to access. So good drip system that give the bees what they need is excellent. You also want to provide modern education and training, because there are ways to do beekeeping that can advance your apiary very well. For example, the very covering you put on your bee. Are you using a metal covering which will increase heat in the box, or are you using a plastic covering with a gap that dissipate the heat to cool down the box?
Have you looked at what the current arrangements are in our system now? Are you seeing a gap in how ready Jamaica is to encourage and facilitate?
So in our system
growth?
right now, we do have RADA, which sends our own extension officers to whatever degree. But the knowledge level in terms of modern beekeeping, there's a gap in that area. The supplies that are accessible here, the importation cost of those supplies, we don't make those supplies here. So if we're not making it, you shouldn't have huge importation costs on the supplies coming in, because
That's government policy.
yes, you're inhibiting the beekeeper. So you need to make sure whatever we do not produce here, make us competitive by reducing the cost of importing those items into the country. And you also want to ensure that you have beekeeping training sessions that are modern, and I'm stressing modern.
Modern.
Yes.
So already I see work for heart.
Yes.
I see easing restrictions and tax
Yes.
around important inputs.
Yes.
So that both the training and the education can be handled by heart.
Yes.
Would you keep RADA? I mean, what do you
What
think
would
of
we-
RADA as
what
an
would we keep or
agency?
not?
Yes.
I think we need to move into a very different age right now of how we do these things. So for example, RADA, we need to move to an intelligent way of disseminating information. I talked earlier on about a digital library. It's important that we have a very free, accessible digital library with up-to-date modern information for every single sector in Jamaica, including the beekeepers. So you can easily find and get what is relevant to Jamaica. For example, our zone, our tropical zone, the temperatures in the different areas and space in Jamaica, what is optimal for the bee here. For example, what you have in Clarendon will be different from, say, what you have in
St. Elizabeth.
St. Elizabeth.
Yeah.
And not all of St. Elizabeth, some parts
Some
of
parts.
St. Elizabeth. Southern St. Elizabeth different from northern, northeast different from southwest. So
Talking about the microclimates.
microclimates
Yeah.
and so,
So-
on, yes, the ecology that is there.
So that is all knowledge based, and
yes.
I hear you on that. I want to ask Ms. Clark now, any of what he's saying, would that have assisted you in your journey into bee farming? What was it like for you entering the business?
Well, it still is a challenge. We have issues like theft, pretty lastly. Now,
I'm not afraid
there
of
is-
them the bees escape.
nobody steals, no ordinary person
Yeah.
steals bees like that. It has to be
Another beekeeper.
Another beekeeper.
Okay.
So you need more honest beekeepers.
Yes. The other thing is that even if you do report it to the police,
You have the
well, I
expertise.
have not experience.
Alright, gotta keep the microphone
have
close to you.
experience dealing with bees, and but I have got to write about that. And
Okay, so right away you can see what he has said about people being better trained, more knowledgeable would affect everything.
Everything.
So that would be a plus. What about access to inputs at reasonable cost?
yes, we need access to equipment and stuff coming in.
Funding.
Funding for that would be great, and as you mentioned before, modern training, because in our group, Women Bee Farmers Association of Jamaica, we do from time to time get funding, and we bring trainers from New Mexico and other parts of the United States and so on. We do use up a lot of the byproducts from the hive, the propolis. We make soaps and lip balms and lotions and hair oils and all sorts of things. But we need to expand on it.
So
we
you-
are
yeah.
known, Jamaica is known to be a country of samples.
That's a point.
Samples, because then when somebody sees these samples
Listen,
and
how
orders,
much can I get? We can't respond to that.
excuse me,
But if you are only able to produce samples, then we need to develop a niche market that if you're getting it from Jamaica, it's going to
And
premium price.
yes, but there is another factor to that also. Now, the government does bring in, agencies through the government bring in a lot of chemicals. That's mainly used by the farmers. Now, those are neonicotinoids. Those are nerve controlling chemicals for insects, and incidentally, a bee is an insect. Now, when the bee goes on these crops, takes it back to the apiary, everybody dies. So we need to stop that, those chemicals from coming in. The bee need to pollinate. That is what carries on our existence as humans. So if we're
Well,
killing the
Mr.
bees,
Patterson is into organic farming, so
Yes.
right away you can see where changing the kind of fertilizers
Very much so.
would make a difference. All right, so it sounds like you want to vote.
Pardon me?
So
Sounds like you want to vote. I want you to talk about though what you are doing. Tomorrow is B Day.
Yes, World Bee Day. There would be an expo, whole celebration
where?
at
What,
Hope
Hope
Gardens.
Gardens. Give us the information that people can go and become a part of learning to make more honey.
Are we going to get free honey?
You're gonna get honey tomorrow.
We're not able to even able to produce enough. Yes, we having a big challenge in that, and Mr. Patterson does know that too.
Yes. I mean, we're bsweetjamaica.com. We're doing fairly well. We had a pretty good year this year, last year into this year. Many of our other apiaries around didn't do so well. I think the big difference is that because I kept a lot of forestry around my apiary, they were protected from some of the elements that affected other apiaries. And the way that we managed our water availability was very good as well. I found that our bees liked the fact that we placed a lot of water in good proximity to where they are. And
So the bees drink water? That's what you're
yeah,
saying?
man. Yeah, man.
Trouble,
Very important.
I know.
And also,
Yes.
here's a bit of there's a little manga falling. Here's a key thing that happened is that we did well because a lot of farmers were not farming close by. So the pesticides and stuff did not
which-
affect us as much, and it
Yes.
affected you very much. So a lot of our farmers have become poor nearby, and the cost
So you
of inputs.
profited from their poverty.
I did. Well, it's life.
The bee did.
So what happened was they and I've watched this over the years.
Yes.
They started out with the inputs you're talking about, and it gave them high yields initially, but then the yield becomes less and less over the years.
Talking about the farm,
The farms and the cost of inputs keep rising.
which is what they want to see happening.
Exactly.
That is a plan, you know.
It's a plan. That's why the UIC wants to bring Jamaica back to organic farming, but not just regular organic farming, well-managed organic farming. The way we do it in the Netherlands, where they get mass production, but they control all of those issues you're talking about
Yes.
to prevent the kind of problems we're having in the beekeeping industry right now.
Yeah.
All right, I have
We
two
have-
questions from online that I have to put to Mr. Patterson before he goes. While I get the questions, you can wrap up your bee appeal.
Okay, it's a Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries celebration of World Bee Day 2022. And the theme is Be Engaged, celebrating the diversity of bees and beekeeping systems. And that's tomorrow, Friday, May 20th. And it's going to be located on the front lawns of the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries at Hope Gardens Complex, Kingston. And it starts at 10 a.m.
And it's a free event.
It is
No
free.
cover charge. All right, thank you so much for that. That was beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Just beautiful.
Yeah, we gotta try the beautiful punning. All right, I have two questions for you, Mr. Patterson, big ones, and this is from Taki, very faithful listener of ours from out of the U.S. He says, "What do you think of the environment, and what are you planning to do about the mining operations that are impacting the environment?" And you know the cockpit one is a big one, and I have to tack something onto it. Pardon me for punning your name, Taki. Are you in any way hesitant or fearful about revoking licenses and dealing with the fallout when you
Absolutely
see?
not. I believe squarely in ending the mining operations in Jamaica. It is not sustainable. It is contrary to our long-term economic interest, and we need to move away from mining and move to farming.
So the extractive industries are done for you.
Yes.
Now, naturally, if they are listening, and I expect that they are, those who are in favor of doing this kind of work in emerging or developing economies are immediately writing a check for the other guy and say, we gotta
Absolutely.
make sure that this UIC man don't see the light of day.
Absolutely.
You're prepared for that?
Of course, and in fact,
right.
that's why we're going after the middle class.
That's why
Yes.
that's why you jump in.
We want the middle class to get involved and help to fund the UIC so that your children, your grandchildren will not suffer the cancerous effect of mining and artificial organic material in our farming. We need to make sure we go back to organic farming, stop the mining, and create a healthier Jamaica for all Jamaicans.
So you're jumping
All
to
right.
the next generation.
Absolutely.
Yes.
The Jewish community have done.
Yes.
Yeah. And then now, Taki again, on the business of education, I tell you, the universe is fighting this question. There has been like every kind of noise between breeze and bike noise. All right. The education system that needs radical change, he says. What are your views in regard to addressing the social problems?
Yes.
Will there be a family life program? He's giving you a hint at
Yes.
what he wants to hear. Will there be a family life program, self-actualization, resolving conflict issues, history, etc., as part of the process, catering from kindergarten, basic school, throughout the tertiary levels? So he has answered it for you, but I guess...
He's reading the UIC manifesto.
All right,
Quoting
okay.
from it. So that's where we're going.
Yes.
But most importantly, though, on the education front, we're going to make it an Afrocentric education curriculum. This is very important. We need to give our people a full sense of who they are and the potential for our people as black people.
Man, you're
How
just...
we can create.
Yeah, you're just buttering me up now when you start that kind of talk.
I wanted to ask you.
I'll slip out of your hand at this rate.
I wanted to ask you, have you been impacted and influenced by Marcus Garvey?
Absolutely. Marcus Garvey is my hero. He is the one Jamaican who, for me, what he has accomplished, if you think what Marcus Garvey has accomplished without all of what we have
The
today,
technology and the...
to build
Yes.
such a massive UNIA organization, to overcome in America as an immigrant, in America without even citizenship, he was able to move the black Americans to have faith in themselves and to lift themselves up. That's what we need now in Jamaica and globally. So Marcus Garvey is my hero, and I've read his books, I've studied his life, and I went to Africa myself and made sure that I went to Ghana, and Ghana has 30 million people, and as God lives, there are 30 million Jamaicans.
That's what I mean. I went to Ghana, I
went into a community in Kumasi. I lived with them for about a week in a what you call it now, a tribal community.
Right.
They don't speak any English.
Right.
I lived with them for a week, no English.
Right.
And we eat together, we make joke, we laugh, just like Jamaicans. And I'm like, they can't speak my language, I can't speak theirs. But
How is this happening?
We just bonded.
Yeah.
And that was such a transformative experience for me. Then I went into the inner city of Accra and see how the people hustle and how they make things work in a difficult situation. I'm like, my God, this is Jamaica. And then I observed something else. They actually follow the same system of governance that we do. And here's the problem. The same system leads to the same results. So even though Ghana is 100 times richer than Jamaica, gold, oil, everything, they still have the same problems we do because they embrace the same colonial model.
Them have the same mother.
Yes, and so we now need to realize that it's not because Jamaica is small, it's because we're under a system that prevents us from realizing our full potential. So a UIC government is going to relinquish the colonial control in our country and give Jamaica back to Jamaicans and embrace our African heritage.
So.
And
All right,
connect with our
one last question,
Yeah.
and I have to place it because it is from a prophetess.
Yeah.
What are your plans to tackle this employment, labor drain, and importing employment that the Prime Minister spoke of?
I'm glad you brought that up because very shortly the UIC will be hosting a job expo where we're inviting all of those persons who have skills or unemployed in particular, and we're going to make a presentation to the government of the hundreds of Jamaicans who are skilled but unemployed. We believe that the approach of the government of trying to sell us the idea that they need to import
Skilled labor.
is an indictment on 78 years of these two parties being unable to build a Jamaica that can build our own roads,
Yeah,
can build our own hospital,
build our own houses, and so on.
So
And,
we're going to change that.
and nature is joining with you because this is like a...
And
Yeah.
all of
All
you
right.
is crying out.
Yes.
you could
saying
see
enough
that
is enough.
you could see that this could continue for a while.
Exactly.
Let me do the thank yous because we are in the last 10 minutes of the program. Thank you so much. You traveled from St. Elizabeth.
tell you.
You stayed at our club. Please give us some good reviews online and everywhere
Ligonier
else.
Club was perfect. I enjoyed everything from the food to the welcome to the service. A great club. I'd recommend it to anyone.
Well, thank
Of
you
the
so
land of
much.
Gentry coming in from the country.
Yes, you have used it exactly as it was intended all those years ago by the white people who gifted it to us, and how they must be turning in their graves. Not only is a woman sitting and speaking on their lawn because women were not allowed,
Yes.
but there's a black man saying
Black
it was
man saying,
perfect.
yes, man.
This is a
Lovely-
nice
lovely
note
staff,
on which to
lovely
end.
Food was great.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Patterson. We wish you all the best. And you know, we have said that we want to get the word out on anything that is proposing to change some fundamentals in Jamaica. So
And
whenever
jump
you
into
need
the
us,
future.
when you need us, we are
Jump
here.
into
To the future, yes. A future.
Thank you
Thanks,
to
Paul.
all those online who are Omari Jones. Omari, let me remind you that the man said one man, one vote. You have voted 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But to all those who are online, sharing with us, we thank you for your input. Those who are on air, I know you miss calling in and giving Mr. Patterson a run for his money. But I tell you what, we will do this again and have him in studio where we take phone calls. Thank you to the crew, and we have 2 Best FM family members who came out to say, "Wait, they're the marketing people, so they're making sure that we're worth marketing." I hope we pass the grade.
Thank you so much
Mr.
for having
Producer,
us.
engineer, and all that you performed this morning. I told you that you would see a one-man band.
Yes, and it's an excellent one-man band.
Yes, I take some credit for training him.
I think so too, yes.
Pastor Percival, thank you. And
Boy, this a producer. Better want the pass. Better want the pass.
if he had a microphone, if he had a
There's a
microphone.
price to pay for that.
But you'll notice he has not cut me off.
There you go. Yeah.
This is the start of the Morning Connection weekend, so we say have a great weekend because we won't be on tomorrow. Tomorrow morning you'll get to listen to Orit, and I hope Orit have plenty to say about the many things that have been happening. Please stay tuned with Best FM. We're trying to make ourselves indispensable to your life. How you think, what decisions you make. There should be something for you on the Best FM radio family. So thank you all. Signing off.